How goes it? This is Ray Azul Sovereign, otherwise known as Demetrio de la Rosa and Mad Dog Blue. Um, I'm just gonna jump right into the recording for several reasons. First, I think some of these introductions are extremely corny. They're stupid. It's the kind of thing that people do just to draw you in, just to get you to pay attention to what it is that a person might be preparing the audience to receive. Um, it's effective, it works. However, it's not really the way that I do things. I can sit down and brainstorm or plot, the schematic for a podcast. I could make it extremely dynamic. I have a green screen. I have the software that where you don't need the green screen, where you can just remove the background digitally. All kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of cool stuff, and I know how to do those things. I don't do some of that stuff for a reason because obviously already there's enough moving parts as that pertains to um, this particular um, presentation. So, in order not to distract the listener or the viewer, I avoid certain commercially standard presentations. I think that some of that stuff is extremely goofy. It's boring to me. So some of these people that come onto the internet and they're like, "Oh, this is hip hop, right? The hip hop is a cult now, right?" And then, or they have their little rappers do their little intros or whatever. It's like toughest environment, toughest environment, and all this other kind of stuff. It's extremely sad. I mean, on one hand, the attempt is what it is. So the attempt to try to present things in a manner that someone feels is professional is what it is. Cool, no problem. I don't have an issue with that. The part where people try to make it into this dynamic sort of experience, right? It's like we're not just uh, we're not just recording this stuff. This is an experience, and pay into the experience, right? Give me some money for this experience, or donate to my Cash app for this experience. That should let people know quite clearly that it's a hustle. When people start trying to start threatening their viewers and telling people, "Oh, if you don't donate right now, I'm gonna do this, or if you don't do this, I'm gonna do that," right? That is weird to me because I don't even care about these people's programs like that to to ever to ever even consider allowing them to influence me in any sort of way, especially as that pertains to sending them some money. I mean, I've had a person send me $30. I've had people send a dollar or two. Um, and it feels good when that happens. Sure, if you feel like you won something, it's almost like playing the slot machine. And for some people, that's what this is. This is their version of a come up. It's like a slot machine. It's like, how long can I sit on here and how much can I get paid to do that? Or how many of my friends can I get to sit on here with me to create this dynamic, to create this club, this conversational feel, right? It's the scamming part of the way some of this stuff works is quite obvious to anybody who pays attention. So I'm going to leave that there. This evening, I want to discuss some very important things because I do understand that there are young people that are following my Facebook page and these recordings, these videos. Um, and on one hand, I feel like that's a good thing. And then on another hand, I feel like it's not so great. Reason being that some of this stuff isn't for people who are too terribly young. But then where I live, the standards as that pertains to youth is a little bit different. So some of these younger people, they're kind of functioning and moving around as adults. And I feel like that's part of the reason why some of these kids are being charged as adults at 16 years old these days. Well, it's always been like that. You could catch a felony and get charged as an adult when I was a teenager. So I guess they consider you to be, as far as the law is concerned, 16, you're an adult. You can drop out of school. You can start making your own decisions. However, you're not legally able to enter into contracts and things like that on your own. You're not able to experience the full benefit of adulthood as far as making your own decisions is concerned without parental guidance until you're 18. However, you can be emancipated, and then in some places emancipation is kind of like you don't have to go through a court to be emancipated in some places, and especially these days. So it's tough and it's difficult. I'm looking at the screen right now. I'm looking real fat in the face. And that is what that is. I'm not going to go out of my way to make any adjustments or to grab a hold of a camera or a particular angle that changes that, right? It just so happens that if you have this wide angle sort of camera situation going on, it's going to fatten your face. So, and then maybe I had too much salt or something. I have been ingesting too much salt, and that's because I've been allowing other people to prepare my meals, and that's something that I'm working on eliminating as far as other people, allowing other people to prepare my meals for me when that's not necessary. I know how to prepare my own food. I know how to, make sure that my body is in order, etc., etc. Anyway, I'm gonna get right into the meat and potatoes of this recording, right? So there's a lot happening on the television. There was just an election that took place, right? An election and a selection, if that's the way the viewer or the listener would receive it better. There are people who are very aware that right now we're dealing with different beings. Right now. Some of these people that the average or the general public believe are human beings are not human beings. They are from outer space. Some of them are cyborgs. Some of them are robots. Some of them are biological machines. I've been accused of such. That's okay. It could be that there are parts of my body that are cybernetic, and that would be difficult to explain to the average person, and something that I care not to explain. I'll just say that I had a certain operation, and in that operation, there was an implant placed in my body. Also, though, there are beings from other dimensions as well as from what is considered to be the abyss. Some people think that the abyss is under the sea, under the ocean, and that is an abysmal place. It is also a reflection of outer space. And the real abyss, the real star ocean, the real star uh, sea is in outer space. Works kind of like the way our oceans work here or our seas work here. There are vessels, there are fleets, there are different organizations, nations, armies, however you say it, alliances, and there are galactic confederations. A lot of what we see in our history books and what has been explained to us in a very, someone consider it to be archaic because it's written down. It's the written word, which is an analog form of recording. However, we are in a digital age. There are people who feel like they don't need to learn how to write. Learn to write for what? When typing is now the standard for communication and data entry, as well as, uh, you know, receiving information, presentations, and video as well. And there are people who have said this sort of stuff, and specifically Native Americans. uh, we know that there are beings in outer space that have visited this earth, that continue to visit this earth, that continue to visit and possess people, or to share their energetic field, or to even prey upon people's energetic fields. Some people call those entities demons. Some people call those entities angels. Some people call those entities, which they are. However, they're very real. And I've shown repetitiously different photographs that capture these images or these the presence of these creatures, these beings, many of which are elemental and confined to specific realms or specific biomes on this earth that are suitable and hospitable to their frequency and vibration. Now, to comprehend what I'm explaining can be complicated or it could be extremely simple. It depends on what you already know about the material at hand. So I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to read a few paragraphs from a book that explains some of this stuff fairly well. Um, it would have been better if I had already had this stuff queued up. However, it's here now, so we're going to go into it. It says, I marked my 18th birthday by learning a structured form of meditation called Transcendental Meditation, or TM. I was hungry for anything that would give me an ability to experience higher conscious awareness at will. It appeared that the TM course would be the avenue to take. Now, some people, they won't learn how to meditate, they won't learn how to mediate, they won't learn how to do anything without an instantaneous effect. Sometimes that's drugs, different, very dangerous drugs. And then the messages and the clear channeling that happens while a person is experiencing what some consider to be hallucination, whether that's due to sleep deprivation, due to starvation or extreme hunger, whether that's due to some, you know, psychotic condition, or whether that's due to taking some sort of drug, some sort of psychedelic, mushrooms, or, you know, there are various psychedelics that can cause for a person to enter what is considered to be a crossroad, or to cross a threshold into the realm of spirit, which is part of what the Christian cross represents. The Christian cross is, it's a crossroad, which is why the bottom portion of the cross is longer than the path continuing forward, the path to the left, and the path to the right, because you're going down this road. And if you look at it and you add depth to the cross, or the image of the cross, then you end up with a crossroad. You end up seeing that the cross represents a path, and it goes in different directions, always forward, however, to the left, to the right, or straight ahead. And then there are these psychedelics, many of which are poisonous or poisons. And what's really happening is you're crossing a threshold because delirium starts to occur as your cognitive functions become, I don't want to say dampened, because you can still be highly alert and experience these sorts of things. However, it's more of a situation where an intoxicant, right, be that alcohol, be that some sort of drug, or whatever it might be, enhances a particular faculty in your chakra system, whether that's your root chakra, your solar plexus, your crown chakra, wherever. Which is why there are drugs that make sex extremely pleasurable. Then there are drugs where if you take that drug, you don't want to have sex, but you're drifting into this other world, or you're sedated, right? There are these different feelings, these different sensations that are based on toxins, which is why, you know, when you get drug tested, it's always a toxicology report. Always. Doesn't matter if you're taking marijuana, doesn't matter what drug you're doing. If they believe that you have consumed a drug, there's going to be a toxicology report. Because these things are considered to be toxins. Some of them neurotoxins, various types of toxins that create toxicity within your system, and then the body's response to that. Sometimes the response is to shut down. Your body will shut down. There are people who do these weird drugs and they've died multiple times. Not only that, and I mean legally dead. And then there are these shots, these Narcan shots and shit that bring people back to life. And it's a trip because you see, like, this isn't anything new. We saw that in Pulp Fiction, in the movie Pulp Fiction. You know, the girl, she overdosed on some fin, and you know, John Travolta, the character he was playing, he had to take this shot and stab that woman in her chest and wake her back up. Right? There are different remedies, there are different remedial approaches to dealing with toxins, with poisons. You can see the same thing in venom, or rattlesnake venom, or spiders when they bite people. There is an anti-venom, it's not called anti-venom, it's called anti-venin. And anti-venin reverses the effect, or at least stabilizes the effects of whatever toxin might be the problem. Because naturally your body, when it's experiencing hypertoxicity, it wants to purge whatever poison or whatever foreign substance it is that is causing the body to be out of whack. If you ingest too much salt, you'll start to vomit. If you drink too much water, you can die. Your body will purge itself. I know people who suffer from bulimia, or I used to know people who suffer from bulimia, and that's one of the ways that they would purge their stomach. It's terrible. But some people, they'll literally stick their fingers into their throat and gag themselves. But other people know that if you drink too much fluid, or if you drink too much water and you do it quick, if you do it fast, that can cause your body to purge. It could cause you to throw up. That's very dangerous as well, though, too. There are people who have died. There are young kids who have died from things like that. Too much water. Anything that is overwhelming to the senses or to the body in its normal operation, the body begins to counter it. And a lot of the time, it is to attempt to purge whatever the toxin might be. So if you drink a lot of alcohol, you're going to start to piss. You're going to start to sweat. That's your body trying to get rid of the alcohol. Just too much in your body. So it has to try to purge it. It has to try to release it in order for you to be okay, as well as for your mind, your mental state, your clarity to return to you, for you to be able to see, think, hear, etc., clearly. Now, there are people that say, no, that actually the human body in its normal condition is blunted. And so they use drugs to open up their faculties. And they believe, in a lot of cases, in a lot of situations, it is a spiritual thing. Or it starts out as a spiritual thing. And that's what makes it dangerous. That's what makes some of these poisons extremely dangerous. Because a person can just go to a party and want to hang out and have a good time and become addicted to a serious narcotic. Or They could be trying to experience this euphoria or this hyper sense of awareness or whatever it is, and that becomes addictive. And there are shamans, there are people who throughout history who have used different methods to go into these different states of being, of consciousness, in order to communicate with intellects that the the normal human person in their correct chemical state cannot normally achieve these sorts of things. But then there are people who can without drugs. And that becomes difficult for some people to accept. There are people who will say, okay, well, I can do that too. And their method gets them killed, or their method destroys them because they went about it incorrectly. They didn't, or it's just, they're not, that's not the correct path for them. And it shows because it ends up destroying them one way or another. Back to this reading though. It says, I quickly realized without its ceremonial trappings, TM, that's transcendental meditation, is a simple process. It consists of sitting with a thought mantra or sound in order to transcend conscious linear thought and move into unbounded awareness. Sitting next to my teacher, we began the technique. What followed seemed bizarre to him, but felt normal to me. I entered complete transcendental consciousness, full samadhi, right? Full samadhi. Wow. So I was there once more in a state of cosmic awareness. It was very beautiful. And the technique worked for me so easily because the channel was already open due to my near-death episode the previous March. Now, I haven't read this. I just pulled it up. Pretty soon, I'm going to point some cameras at different things. I mean, it's difficult for me to prove that I haven't already read this material. However, I'm not big on telling a bunch of lies and a bunch of pretend-ass stories. It tends to be that when I tell something, it's normally, that's what it is. Whether you can believe it or not, whether it sounds outlandish or outrageous to you or not, it's the truth. So it says, the teacher looked at me afterward and said, you went there, didn't you? I said, yes. He said, on the first time? And I said, well, I'm not so sure it's the first time, but the first time with you. I began thereafter to practice the ability to experience cosmic consciousness at will. This opened up an even more extraordinary view of the world and of myself. I could now reconnect to the very pure state of earth, nature, and divinity that exists untainted by human corruption. I was rediscovering the purity and innocence of that awareness I had as a young boy, but understanding it more fully. And I think I've explained that in almost exactly the same verbiage as this person is using in this writing. Basically, what I explained is that kids tell you what they see, and grown-ups say, no, you don't see that. And they say, yes, I do. And they say, no, you don't. And yes, they do. You see what I mean? It says, I left the following summer to attend Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. I selected ASU based purely on its wilderness location in my beloved Blue Ridge Mountains, for which I have a deep affinity. I believe this feeling comes from a genetic connection based on my Cherokee heritage, Well, how about that? Yep, that too. Believe that. Anyway, it says, I wanted to spend every moment possible out in those mountains, in every kind of weather, being totally connected like a spirit walker in nature. I was eager to practice my newly acquired meditation skills and continue having the experience of connecting with divinity. Thus, at the threshold of my adulthood, I'd gone from growing up in a home with no prayer, not even knowing about it, or about the experience of communion with God, to experiencing cosmic consciousness. I'd found all of this on my own. So it's like I wrote this or something myself. Gosh. Yeah. Okay. It says the absence of religious upbringing was actually a blessing in disguise. Now that I don't have that in common with whoever wrote this, because I had a very religious upbringing in certain parts of my childhood, as well as, well, yeah, mostly during my childhood and partially into my adulthood as well. Um, but yeah, this person, they said that they had no previous religious or spiritual upbringing or background, which is interesting. Oh, okay. It says with only a few rare exceptions. Having been spared the religiosity, I could simply search for the truth without the baggage of embellished doctrines. Now that's he's going to the whoever this is going to the left there, because the baggage of embellished doctrines. I mean, if this person has really reached the level or the point that they can clearly understand as well as clearly channel, you can't just have clear understanding, right? There are different clairs, right? There are the claircognizance, there's so many of them. Clairvoyance, right? There's so many different types of clarity, and you'll see that in some of the OT levels in Scientology, right? They call it clear, and then these other levels beyond being clear, and basically that's another way of saying clairvoyance or psychic energy, right? The ability to, um, you know, what some consider to be samadhi or samdi or samadhi or samdi, right? Anyway, I just wanted to do that real fast because some of these people, that's what they do. They'll speak to you in this calm tone, almost in a monotone voice, or they'll speak to you in a tone that just draws you in. It brings down your guard as far as protecting yourself from high pitches, loud noise, any of those things that listening intensely, right? If you're listening intensely, those things become a problem for you. So you might not be listening as closely as you could be, okay? Until you trust that the speaker is not going to do something like yell, right? It then startles you, causes you to jump, almost pulls you out of your own skin, makes you uncomfortable. It's an instant frequency change, right? And that frequency change, what they're doing is, in that moment, they've lowered your ass to the point that they can tap into your energy field. You see what I mean? It's almost like poking holes in something, right? Because your energy field, based on your attention, you giving attention, your attention, intensity of attention causes for you to let down your guard. And then if a person then yells, or they change their tone, they change the topic, they change the point, all of a sudden it causes you to, like, it it scrambles your energy field, and then that can impress and implant. Should you continue to allow that to happen. Anyway, I'm digressing in that regard. It said what happened that fall was an extraordinary amplification of that near-death occurrence about 6 months earlier. I was on Rich's Mountain, about 5,000 feet above the town of Boone. At the top, there was a fire tower at the end of a gravel road that was closed at its base. One crystal clear afternoon, I decided to go and see the sunset from atop this mountain. I reached the top in time to sit in meditation at sunset. Before starting, I glanced towards the southwest and saw an extraterrestrial vehicle. It was some distance away, but just like the one I had seen as a 9-year-old. For some reason, my reaction at that moment was, it's them again, and that's in quotations. It says, and I didn't really think much more about it. I simply accepted the fact that they were here. Then the ship winked out, just like the one I'd seen years before. I then began meditating and had a beautiful, deep experience in unbounded mind. Afterwards, I opened my eyes and it was pitch dark with the stars all visible. Imagine being at that altitude in the crystal clear dry air, viewing the Milky Way and countless stars, standing there. Suddenly a thought not my own came to mind. Behold, what a beautiful universe God has made. With that, I went into the exact state of consciousness I had when I died. That God consciousness where I was fully awake, at one with the entire creation, and yet present, standing on the mountain. It was magnificent. Again, I think I just explained that. When I began the walk down, I noticed a glow off the edge of the mountain and sensed someone was there. Suddenly on my right, an extraterrestrial biological life form appeared and touched my shoulder so firmly that it was like a strong finger touching me. I looked down and saw the imprint on my jacket. Every hair on my head stood on end. Somewhat childishly, my first thought was, what does this creature want with me? I got down close to the ground. I hate to admit this, in a fetal position, looking up, and he was looking back. Its gender was male. He was quite peaceful and non-threatening, with beautiful deer-like eyes. Then I suddenly found myself transported onto the craft. We were just out in space, sitting. I recall that the craft became completely translucent. It felt like I was floating in space with nothing around, as if the whole craft was made of fiber optics and its shell could disappear. Space was visible all around us. So anyway, it's a very interesting read, and maybe I'll go into it further at a later date. However, I just wanted to share that briefly with the viewer or with the audience to explain that a lot of what you're seeing right now in politics, as well as with these people out here in the world right now, some of these younger people, some of these older people, etc., etc. What you're seeing is there are people who know that we're not here alone. There are people that know that the Bible, as well as other religious documents, are very applicable. They're very truthful. They were placed there for a reason. Some people think that it's all just, some man channeled this and buried this shit in a urn or in a jar in the desert. Maybe. Or maybe, possibly that stuff was placed there to be found and was discovered, was found in real life. However, it also might be that it was not placed there by what we know to be a human being. Whether that is some archaic form of man or a more advanced creature. And we know that more advanced beings than humans have always existed and continue to exist. Which is why I'll tell you, I'm not a human being. In closing this recording, I will say, lie for what? Why lie about it? Why not just keep it real? Why not just keep it funky? Why not explain that in order for you to be able to, not only to be able to do certain things, but to have certain power and certain authority comes from on high. And I don't mean drugs. I mean it comes from another world. It comes from another dimension, which is why there is a line of kings that are selected. Certain bloodlines are selected. Certain people are anointed and appointed. And then you'll say, but by who? By the elect and the electors. Whoever those selectors might be. So anyway, I'm going to close this recording. Try not to let these trolls scam you. Right? It's easy to separate someone from their money, especially nowadays. Happens to the best of us. You have to be hyper vigilant, hyper alert. I've been in Oklahoma for about 2 years. And in that 2 years, I came here with almost nothing. And now I have so much. And that's a blessing. It's just a few more things that I need to do. And then what else do I need? I mean, really? Maybe I need everything. Maybe I want everything. But that would be greedy of me, right? It's a few more goals, accomplishments. And I've already been blessed with so much. And I'm already blessed to experience so much and to know and to understand and to communicate and to power and to empower, as well as to take power. That's powerful. This is Ray Azul Sovereign, MadDoggBlue, Demetrio De La Rosa, Demetrius. And I'll get back with you all.